Welcome back to Good Old House Japan. The do's and don'ts when buying Akiya in Japan. I have worked with a real estate company in Kyoto for about 3 years, and afterwards I made my own company and has been doing that since the early 2021. The company I run is called Koryoya for traditional wooden houses around the Japanese countryside. So I've summarized the do's and don'ts from searching, viewing, making an offer, contract to the settlement. There may be some points that may be a bit straightforward, harsh to hear, but these are very important points that will be very helpful. That saves your time. It saves the realtor's time, and knowing these basic things will make everyone happy and make the transaction a lot smoother for your purchase of Akiya or any properties in Japan. Number one, don't think there are actually 9 million Akiya houses that are abandoned around Japan that you can actually buy. Do understand that most of these vacant homes, only a very small portion are available for sale, for purchase. And if you refer to some of the bigger portal sites, for example, homes for old used houses, not including land, not including newly built houses, there are only about 70,000 on the whole portal throughout Japan. 70,000, that's only less than 1% of the 9 million that you hear on the major medias. They are abandoned, but obviously they are not available for you to purchase for cheap because they are just not available, whether they can attract the owner or the owner doesn't want to sell, or it's just managed by somebody else, a relative, someone that they don't need to sell the house. Number two, please don't just ask for the cheapest house available. I know on the media you can hear there are, of course, plenty of cheap Akiya homes around Japan, but that really depends on the location of the property, the condition of the property. I'm sure a lot of the Akiya houses, they're for a few $1,000s. They are very rural. You would have to spend a lot of money to fix it. At the same time, if you go into the city, Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, they are big cities with Akiya, of course. In those big cities, you can expect something from 50K, 100K, or even more for a small house, but very conveniently located. Do make sure that you kind of focus a few regions around Japan that you would like to find this property. Of course, there are small towns that still has trains to connect to the big cities. And if you're okay with the countryside, there are obviously cheaper properties, Akiyas. They are maybe livable for cheaper, 30K to 50K. There are plenty of them, but don't expect all the Akiya to be cheap. Number three, I think many of you may have already know, but do not expect owning a property or Akiya will give you any kind of special residential status, any kind of special visa that allows you to live in Japan full time. So the do's, of course, if you just want to use the house as a vacation home when you come to Japan for a few months a year, that's fine. But if you do plan to relocate to Japan long term, do think about how you're going to go about getting the long-term visas. For example, it can be a student visa, it can be a working visa if you get a company to hire you, or you can make your own company to get the business management visa. With the declining population of Japan, I can only expect that these visas will be slightly easier to get. Number four, do not trust all the information that are on the real estate property sites. For example, the most common one is the age of the house. When it comes to old traditional houses built before 1950s, there really isn't a clear record of when the house was built. So a house that was built 100, 200 years ago, the realtor could just put up the property as something 1960s, 70s because the system doesn't allow the property to be registered at a certain age. This is very common. You see all the time. So do ask for specific information about a property from the realtor. The real estate sites usually doesn't have enough space to explain everything clearly on words. So for example, the common ones, the parking situation, the boundary of the house, the condition of the houses. There are sometimes multiple houses on the premise that you can't really get a good idea of what's in a livable condition, what's not, and of course the utilities available for the property: water, gas, electricity. Just to add, with such an increasing interest of Akiya Japanese properties around Japan, there have been so many new websites, business, they're aiming to foreign buyers nowadays. So actually I want to make a separate video on my opinion on all these sites available and what could be helpful for you and what I think is just a waste of money. Number 5, do not expect that one agent in a certain location can help you with the search, the purchase of any properties around Japan. In Japan, it's actually common that an agent, the seller's agent, to represent the buyer as well. I think in other countries it's not so common to do that, but in Japan actually it's especially common among countryside properties where the price is so low. So just getting one side of commission doesn't make that much sense for the realtor to work so hard on a property that's so far away from where he is. If you want one agent to help with all the properties around Japan, it's really not possible. So what you should do is, depending on the location of the house, the type of house you want, and your budget, you should really have several connections, different realtors, especially English-speaking realtors if you can find, but they're only available in the cities most of the time. But if you're in the countryside, if you do have connection with a realtor who speaks English, then you'll be the best if you work with that agent for a specific region, not just to a city, but like a prefecture. Mostly the realtors can handle properties within the same prefecture. That's maybe about 1-2 hours drive from where the agent is. Number 6, do not expect to find a property in Akiya to be safe from any kind of natural disasters in Japan. Earthquake, landslide, tsunami, volcano, whatever. While Japan is safe from crimes, you can never escape the natural disasters in Japan. The do's, of course, the realtor, most of the time they will be able to explain the situation regarding natural disasters for a particular property. But what you can do is simply check the hazard map that's provided by different city, different towns. I have several videos in the past that explains the different maps, resources that you can use to check if a property is safe from natural disasters or ghosts, because there is a site available for you to check that. Number 7, this is very straightforward. Don't just send your inquiry in English to local Japanese realtors. Chances are in the countryside, 99% of them, they are not able to read the English. They might just not respond to you because you send the mail in English. So really the easiest thing you can do, just use the translation tools available nowadays, especially ChatGPT. For me, even I think that compared to other translation tools, that the translation is done for English and Japanese sounds very natural. So to increase the chances that you get a response from realtor, do use the translation tools and send your mails in Japanese. Number 8, don't make viewing appointments last minute. For example, the day before the viewing, and do not cancel the viewing appointments last minute. This is called dotakan in Japanese. This leaves a very bad impression for foreign buyers who want to buy property in Japan in the future. I think most of you may not be aware, but realtors in Japan, they have Wednesdays off a lot. And really Saturdays, Sundays, they are usually working. So with this in mind, please make sure you make the appointments at least 3-4 days, working days in advance, so that the realtors have time to adjust their schedule. Number 9, don't expect an agent to know everything about the property during the viewing, especially for younger staff who works for the big company where the company can be handling a few hundred properties in the area. So instead, you could just list up all your questions on email to have the agent answer to you later. And it's better to have these questions, answers, to have a record on email anyway. Number 10, especially if you're buying something just for personal use and not like a commercial building, you don't need to involve a lawyer when buying a property. especially Akiya property in Japan. In Japan, licensed realtors, they are often able to handle much of the due diligence involving a lawyer from your home country or involving an English lawyer, speaking lawyer in Japan. Is going to be very costly, and it takes a lot longer than what the realtors usually expect for confirming the documents. So do check if the property may have unclear ownership, if there is any dispute over the boundaries with the neighbors. The judicial scriveners, of course, can check if there is any kind of unpaid mortgages, liens that needs to be cleared before the settlement. 11. Simple. Do not send directly in USD any other currencies in your home country. Please make sure when you send to Japan, in the end, the receiver gets your payment exactly in yen. So the do, of course, if you haven't, you're not used to sending money overseas or to Japan, services like Wise or Revolut, they are very helpful for helping you making the transfer to Japanese bank accounts. And you can do it easily. The fees quite low, I think, compared to standard international wire transfer as well. Number 12, do not take it personally if in the end the owner does not want to sell to you because you are a foreigner. It might be because of himself, herself, but it might be because of the neighbors, the relatives living in the area that they are not so sure to have somebody who cannot speak the language, who cannot live in the house full year, to be taking over the house. Just make sure that you ask the realtor to check with the seller if the seller is okay, that a foreigner is buying the house, so that no one's time is wasted. Some cases, a company owns the property. In that case, then really, I don't think you have to worry about the seller not selling, because again, they're looking for profit and they don't care too much about who buys the house afterwards. That is everything. These are my honest opinion from working in the field for the last 7 years. So I hope you find these points helpful for your search, purchase for Akiya properties around Japan. If you remember all these points, I'm sure you can have a smooth journey in successfully buying a property around Japan. See you again. Bye-bye.